Are we?
That's a lot of no's.
Are we going to kick off then?
Alright, yeah.
Who's going to start this thing?
I'll start it.
We're recording.
We're recording. Okay. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Otaku Cartel Anime Club panel.
Yeah! We're a year old today.
Yeah,
All of us
this
collectively. This is our first birthday.
Our first birthdays today.
What is Okko Anime Club, Ebby?
So
Please
Okko
tell
Anime
us.
Club is this thing where at least me, Alan and Cam get together once a fortnight or something like that to just watch an anime, and then we talk about it on a live stream, and we like to get everyone involved as much as possible. So what we're going to do for this panel is we're going to be talking about Patema Inverted. So if you haven't seen the film, I highly suggest leaving because we're going to spoil it really bad.
I don't want spoilers.
But yeah,
We'll introduce ourselves. Even though I think everyone in this room knows who we are or have been to a previous panel, we'll do it anyway.
yeah, we'll do it like we
for
usually
posterity's sake.
Introduce yourself for the sake of the video.
Yeah. So we'll start with Cam.
Hello, I'm Cam. Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone in this room knows me.
You spell that?
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Cam.
That's not how you spell it.
Don't ask me hard questions. I'm over. Like, I hate to spell my own name. I'm known as Tensei Twister on YouTube, and I do figure reviews, and I like anime because that's why I do it.
Right, Alan.
You in the silly hat.
My name is Tired.
Tired shift.
Also Alan, also back shift. I make anime reviews on YouTube. And that's about it.
Want to speak up a little?
No.
Okay.
Come on, man, get hype. Let's go.
I'll wake up as we talk more.
Okay. I'm Ebby, otherwise known as Bizarre5 on YouTube. I do anime reviews and other such content, and I made up this idea of Okko Anime Club.
You did. You are the progenitor.
So it's your fault.
Yep, it's my
I
fault.
watched JoJo's.
Yep, you had to watch JoJo's because of me.
I'm pretty sure it was a collective thing, wasn't it?
Yep.
We were just like, we all really want to watch JoJo's.
So,
Kinross hated it.
we've got a couple of guests with us today, because I just dragged Andy into it, because I thought that would be funny. So introduce yourself, Andy.
I'm Andy. I do some stuff on YouTube as well, mainly gaming stuff. I've also got a really tiny anime channel as well, which is
What's the URL for that?
youtube.com/user/AZY103 new names, but it's really small. It's called the Anime Corner. I've done a couple of figure reviews and some anime stuff, but that's about it.
Oh, I'm Pat, and ditto to everything everyone else said. And I'm Animalting on YouTube. I make videos.
And it's from Australia.
I'm
Yeah,
from
it is.
Australia.
It came all the way from Australia.
Just for this.
It's AmeChibi. What
I
a
couldn't
tragic
miss out on
waste.
the birthday.
No, this con's been really good.
I've been
Yeah.
on a previous one too. Go watch that one, that one's great.
Which
Well,
one?
God only knows.
I didn't watch that.
What?
What?
Oh my god. All you do on Plug DJ is play that one song until God only knows.
I
I swear you wait. You wait until we innate an anime and then you go, am I going to hate this one? Yes, and you watch it.
Yep.
Am I going to like this one? Oh, I might leave it then.
I didn't watch the club. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Right.
No, we're alright, thank you.
We're using
Alright.
circles.
We're using circle tech.
And we also have guest audience.
Yeah, guest audience.
Yeah, guest audience.
Everyone introduce yourselves. Just say your names or
At once.
whatever.
I'm John. Hello.
It's not at once. Hi, John.
Can I plug?
Yeah, go for
Cool.
it.
I'm Joel, I'm from Geek Out Southwest, small time geek blog. Getting bigger.
Southwest.
Geek Out Southwest, yeah. Even though I'm from the Midlands.
Ooh, Midlands.
Yeah, Shrewsbury.
Oh, look, it's Ed.
Hey!
Right, come and join the
You're
circle,
in time.
Ed.
Come in the circle. You dingus.
One of us. One of
The audience just increased by 20%.
There's the camera. Is the camera
It's
right there?
just sat right in front.
Right in front of Abby.
Sit next to cameras.
I don't bite.
Sometimes.
No, I honestly don't.
There we go.
Don't believe him.
I
So,
bite Pat.
right.
Wait,
Sarah,
Joel.
Joel, Amy, no Amy. What's your name?
Another Ed.
Another Ed. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
wow.
Ed Central.
I'm not going to make the two Eds joke.
One of you's got to be double. It's not what that.
There's one more person.
Dan.
I know
Dan
you.
is Dan Klein too.
So everyone's going to be napping in this. So we're going to talk about Pretend Inverted, and what we like to do to start things off is just give our general opinions of whether we liked it or not before we get more into big old discussions. So since I'm hosting, I get to choose who I pick on first, and I'm going to pick on Alan.
You get to talk more.
Okay, so when I first heard about this thing, I was really kind of intrigued with it, just because the idea of reversed gravity on a character was something that I thought had like limitless possibilities, something that I for a while wanted to see in fiction. I thought it could be like a superpower of someone, like an index or whatever, where like their power is to reverse someone's gravity, just touch someone and they fly into the sky or whatever. But this is definitely a far less kind of superhero take on that idea. And aside from knowing that there's upside down stuff in it and that there's a sick in-joke on every box art for the things on the back of the box to be upside down, I wasn't sure what to get out of it. And in the end, I was really damn impressed. For the first half of the film, it's just kind of introducing the whole premise and everything, and actually did a really damn good job of kind of presenting why everything is like this without it seeming stupid. And halfway through the film, everything just goes like buck wild and mental, and it's just like, yeah, this is brilliant. And I'm not going to go into specifics, but I did really enjoy it.
Hello. Yeah, I really, really like this film. It was badass. I'm not really a big anime films person, I suppose. I don't watch films very often. So I kind of went into this not really expecting anything. I wasn't sure what was going on. I read the plot synopsis and it seemed fairly interesting. And it was really, really, really good. Really good. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. And the concept was just wacky, which people are upside down.
Yeah.
going on to like your idea of having someone that could just reverse people's gravity, you could make that the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah,
you could proper ham up the horror on that one.
Exactly.
Whoa!
There's actually someone that actually does that in One Piece. Just touch someone. Whoop.
There you go, Alan, you need to watch One Piece.
I do.
There you go, 700 episodes.
Watch it with me,
I'll
forever!
I'll see you in 6 months.
I really liked this film. I again wasn't really expecting too much from it. I don't know why, because everyone really, really speaks quite highly about this thing. But for some reason it was one of those things that I bought the DVD of, never watched it. Thought, oh, it's showing at AmeChibi, we could do a panel for that. And I was really surprised by just how much I enjoyed it and how funny it was. I think like how funny it was surprised me, because it seems like a very serious thing when you could fall into the sky, and then they have these like little moments that are really, really funny in it. Really appreciate
that bit in the shack.
Yep.
Yeah. With the music just playing cuts out, like, I'm hungry. Don't forget me.
It was so just like brilliantly janky and harsh compared to everything else, which just made the timing of it so perfect.
Bring me back a sandwich. And then the bit with the sandwich. Yeah, when she just drops it. It's like wow.
So yeah, it was good. Andy, let's pick on you.
Yay, I have to say, I didn't really know anything about it beforehand. I had to ask Evie about 5 or 6 times what it was called, because I kept forgetting. And I just sort of turned up, not really expecting much for it, to be honest. But I was really impressed with it, actually, and I really enjoyed it. And again, yeah, it was a nice comic relief in it. Some tears.
And he was like, it was so good.
It was a roller coaster of emotions.
And although there was one part halfway through I thought it ended, and I was just like, oh, that...
What, when they like fell into the sky and you're like, oh, well, I guess that's
You mean the bit 5 minutes in when she's climbing up the fence and then falls?
I think you mean down the
yeah, overall.
No, I think you mean up the
impressed.
Pat?
Oh, I loved it. It was great. It's been ages since I've seen an anime film which wasn't Ghibli or 12 episodes shunted into one thing.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really cool. I like every like sort of scene where they switched over. Also, just general backgrounds. They looked amazing.
Yeah, they did look really good.
I'm really glad that they got a release for this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, definitely.
Which was kickstarted, funnily enough.
Yeah.
The world of anime is much better off with this film existing.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope they do it for more films. Or we get to see some more from this director, because I reckon he's on
Yeah,
to
who
the
directed
thing.
it? Do we know?
It's Yoshiura, the guy who directed Time of Eve. Has
I
anyone seen
haven't seen
that?
how many.
There's a lot of parallels between the two that's quite easily pick up. Because Time of Eve is basically about this cafe where robots who are sort of malfunctioning to have emotions, because it's in like a future time where people use robots for like all tools and things, and then like robots go to this cafe that actually sort of have emotions that are growing out of control, and people just go to spend time with the robots, and it's kind of the classic kind of moral thing of like, oh, can you fall in love with a machine and everything. And
Smith is a cop and he's got to stop the uprising.
Yep. And the parallels drawn between that and this is that this has a lot of the classic kind of like proto-racism of like, no, this isn't a human, you people can't be together because you're different. And there's a lot of sort of stylistic themes, and also just within the setting at the start of the film where you see the above world populace, and how everything just seems so mechanical, and they're human beings but they're just kind of living on rails, and there's kind of it had a very similar tone to Time of Eve at the start.
So does anyone have like any different opinions other than it was really good, I liked it?
I think my favourite character in the whole thing was the villain.
God,
It was shoot him. It was just
I'm going to draw out my gun and pass it to you.
so one-dimensional, so straightforward. You know, it's you're an evil sinner and you all should be purged, but stay with me and I'll protect you.
Yeah.
Did anyone notice that he was actually James Bond because he had a golden gun?
It reminded me of Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
You all suck, but I want you to love me.
Yeah,
I was just like, oh.
That's what he reminded me of,
Yeah.
because Frollo from the Hunchback of Notre Dame was
Exactly the
just
same.
purely evil, but would be like, oh, I'll totally do you this favour if you do this thing for me.
If you totally become my like sex slave.
Yeah.
It would have been
I
awesome
won't
if
kill
there
you
was
if you
something
let me
horrifying.
sleep with you a lot. That's basically Frollo.
Hey Matt.
Well,
I'm enjoying the circle.
So yeah,
so yeah, basically everyone likes this
I
one.
like
Yeah.
the idea that
Worldwide appeal.
the power of love and doing a nice hug can make you fly.
A nice suggestive hug.
While you're down there, love.
While you're
We're up
down
there.
Should we dial it back to just the general setting, and when we sort of get presented with everything, and the massive contrast between Patema's world beneath, like this very sort of homely, close feeling, and then up to the top where it's just like couldn't be any less personal.
I thought it was like a really kind of neat contrast.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, I don't know, I feel like Patema's people sort of lived a little bit in poverty because they were like, oh man, we've got seeds, we can grow
Yeah.
plants.
Yeah.
And then they go up to the surface where they've got pretty much anything they could ever need, but they're all miserable.
Except for life, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was like a really interesting sort of thing that I picked
I love
up
the
on.
little like suits that they had to go exploring in.
Yeah.
Although when whenever Pam was in the danger zone,
Danger
zone.
Danger zone.
And it's just like, this place is really dangerous. I'm gonna take this mask off. It's fine.
What was the mask for?
Gas to protect you from gravity.
At some point.
It's just great how first time she goes to the danger zone, it's like, oh shit, it's Batman. It's just like, it's a human bat.
I assume it was like meant for them because that was like the danger zone. So I've seen that as like because they didn't want them to go there. They were like wearing all this protective gear. So there's something wrong with that zone, so don't go there and wear all this gear. That's the only thing I can think.
I just like the fact that it had like L-wire on it. It was awesome.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Nausicaa, of the Valley of the Wind, where when they go up into the toxic jungle, they have to wear that like mask, and then sometimes she doesn't wear it. She's just like, oh, I'm in this bubble. 5 minutes without this mask. Yeah, kill me. It's like,
That's because within 5 minutes into the show, they're like, well, this girl is really cute, so we can't have her wearing a mask.
yeah, I'll take that off. Maybe that was the reveal, like, oh, it's a pretty girl, like in every
Yeah.
other anime.
That's what. Yeah, that's essentially why they did it, so they could do the reveal. It's Pat. Oh,
Yeah,
you're
but-
gonna love her for the whole movie.
She was freaking adorable.
I feel like
Yeah.
everyone knew that was Patema because
Yeah.
she's on the box, you know.
Yeah,
if you
it's
look at the
not-
box, it's like, oh, that's Patema.
I find it quite funny how all of the
The world. I didn't think Padma was a character, like, before watching it. I thought Padma was the world
Oh,
itself.
like what they call
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
Essentially.
suppose.
That's why they've got to retell that Patma was actually not inverted.
That's totally man, AG inverted. I did find it quite funny how the security cards were just Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's the Bat.
Unleash the Batman!
To be honest, they were basically called Batman, but they were just freaking look like Death Gun.
Just Death Gun.
I did like how the contrast between the two communities both lived in fear, essentially, because we had the
Yeah.
ones which were all very much, like, they lived underground and they didn't want to go out to the danger zone, and then we had above ground where if you step out of the rules you lost points, and that could contribute to how you're treated in the future.
That was messed up.
Yeah.
Or you could become a sinner and fall into the sky.
You looked out the window,
I did
no breakfast.
that was one of the things I liked. It was like, even though the worlds were so vastly different, the one thing they had in common was like, yeah,
Was
they both
obsessive
have
rules.
like obsessive yeah. They do like, these are the rules, you can't break them. It's for your own good.
I feel like
Even
you
though
could break
Timo was
them
like,
up.
see you later.
Yeah.
Screw the rules and then fall into the sky.
Yeah.
God, what was I going to say? The one thing that I did like is when AG first got like accosted by the police after Patama got captured,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then that like card came up, and he was like, "Oh, you've been accosted by the security guards. That's minus 10 points."
You made a security guard have to fire a net. Do you have any idea how
does that mean,
humiliating
though?
that was?
Like when they say, "Oh, that's minus 3 points." What the hell does that
I
mean?
think you need
like,
a certain number of points because he's there to be a citizen.
Become
I
a
think
citizen,
they have to
yeah.
have
Yeah,
a
that
certain
was
number
it.
of points.
It's less of a
to
school,
pass.
more brainwashing.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean,
okay.
what exactly did citizenship get you?
Not killed.
More of the
Yeah.
same.
Sweet flat.
Less accidents.
Oh man, you want to
Less
you want
accidents.
It's probably
to-
one of those things where they assess who you are as a citizen and then they like put you into a job.
Yeah.
And
It
then they're
looked
like,
like
"What's
100
your job
points,
progression?"
it's a
From the bit where the
Lamborghini.
businessmen were on one side and all the like actual
Workers.
workers were on the other side.
How
They
many
were
points do you need to
together,
get that
so-
golden gun?
Yep.
a lot.
All
I
of
feel
them.
like you lose so many points they don't let you walk on the cool little treadmill. you
Need
got to
the
walk on the
high
AG's
school.
just
One-way
like there
treadmill.
huffing and puffing at the side.
You get your umbrella taken away. Your municipal umbrella.
I did like that moment at the end of the film where they see his dad's like airship
Yeah.
thing coming down and
Yeah.
everyone starts looking to the side.
Yeah.
They start
That was
stepping
really
off it
cool.
as well.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was my
That machine was badass.
And they all
Yeah.
looked up, which they weren't allowed to do, so all demerits for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, suck to be those guys.
No one's getting breakfast today.
And all the teachers ended up looking up as well, so it's
Yeah.
like everyone
Well,
gets
he was
demerits.
the teacher was the first
I
one
thought
to
they
notice,
were
go,
all like-
what's that?
The teachers were like, don't look up, but then they started looking up as well. Like as soon as the guards
Just imagining that all of the secret police are going, we can't look up, how are we supposed to aim?
That's
They've
what
got
those
the
special
main bad
masks
guys
are
there.
for. They just like black out the top part of their eyes.
Yeah, but they've got like mirrors in the bottom so that they can
Yeah.
look up while staring at the floor.
it's like horse blinders. Just
That's probably why they were so rubbish at aiming.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, another thing I found really interesting straight from the get-go is, so we start off underground with the Thames people, and just the general kind of surroundings and background area, it's all this kind of like really rustic materials and everything like that felt really kind of worn and aged.
Felt like
And-
post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, very, very much post-apocalyptic.
Bit City of Ember in a lot of ways.
Which is, if anyone knows me, major plus points. Anything that feels post-apocalyptic.
So that was
Weird
those.
how much it felt like the Vault in like
yeah,
Fallout 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
it did. Just more homely.
So that was their sort of lifestyle very much profiled from the get-go. But then when you sort of go above ground and you kind of see the outfits of all the people up there, it's like, okay, this is a massive different way of life. But then when you also see the surrounding areas, and everything is just as worn out and washed out and damaged as it is down there, which I was actually quite surprised by, because I thought there was going to be much more of a stark contrast of really rural and horrible down there. Go upstairs, everything's just pristine and shiny, but it's just as buggered as it is downstairs.
Like the satellite dishes.
Yeah.
It's just like that field of satellite dishes which never really explained.
It's just there.
But it's just there and it's just like,
Assume that they're just
well,
not
this
used.
is all, this is
I
all
sort of get the idea that that could potentially be attributed to the fact that they are sort of disallowed from looking around and exploring, and all
Yeah.
the interiors of the buildings were very sort of upper class and clean, but everything on the outside maybe just didn't matter because they're just like, right, your life doesn't matter until you're in this building and we're pumping your head through of what we want you to know.
Especially, it's reinforced by the fact that when they're on the treadmills, like going down, like they only look at their feet, so there's like no chance for them to look at the outside of the buildings or anything.
Yeah, it had this very sort of Big Brother society about it, where there's like someone looking at all the cameras, and they
Yeah.
were just staring at everyone. As soon as someone stepped out of line, it's like, you've lost points. Get back in.
Maybe you ever forgot that it was Big Brother Society. The cameras were very loud.
very
Yeah.
loud.
I was really expecting that bit when Porter and Age were just like stuck on the ceiling, both like, ugh. I was expecting the camera to slowly pan around,
like,
and then just this massive face. Oops. Oh man, those two were genius.
Yeah. Okay, so fast forwarding from there, I think the next good thing to talk about is Patema and Eiji's first meeting.
Yeah.
And when you actually finally sort of get the face to face, and it's just like, what could be going through their minds? And it's just like, whoa. Because it's at this point, because they would have heard rumors and everything, and in his school they're sort of taught about how people go up to the skies where the big devil lives or anything. But would either of them have been aware of reverse gravity existing at this point?
I didn't.
They're aware. I think they're aware because Patema was aware of AG as like a bat person.
Yeah.
Because that's just like, you're a bat person, you're going to eat me, no!
And AG says to her, are you an invert?
You're an invert, yeah.
So it's just
and
kind
stuff
of
like the photograph as well that she had,
Mm.
that sort of floated up to the sea.
And they sort of use it as an insult as well, because his teacher says your brain's inverted.
Yeah.
So it's
Burn.
like,
Oh,
it's just like
sick
an
burn.
invert.
What I did like, going to the teacher a little bit, I liked the bit where he said, you're just like your father, and then you see the camera go, just -2
But I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. You're a good kid. You're just a bit misguided. I'm going to help you.
It was
Your
like,
father was
he
a
saw
great
the
man.
Camera, he
Yeah.
saw the camera move around and he went, we're not going to give up on you.
that swerve turn, that was so good.
Yeah,
I think
Nice save.
I did like that though, because it showed kind of even he's
nobody's
under
above
pressure,
Yeah.
and he's fallible as well.
Like
Like they still have will.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a society still trying to get itself under control.
Yeah.
So many of these things where they've got like dystopian, heavily controlled societies, all of the grown-ups have just like been brainwashed already. Like,
Yeah, they're
so,
completely gone. You wouldn't get an interaction like that.
like Equilibrium.
Yeah.
All of the grown-ups
In
are
this
just
one, it
fine.
still seemed like there was still
Yeah.
some resistance.
Little sort of wobbles, but
Yeah.
that was good because it kind of really raised the stakes that little bit higher.
In regards to that brainwashing thing, because the kids are obviously sort of, and the adults are a bit more feisty, how long after this accident is this supposed to happen? Like, are those adults still... are those adults kids from the time when the accident happened, so they've not been brainwashed quite so much?
I assume there's been a good couple of generations because they talk about the elder, and obviously the elder I assume was quite old when he died. And so this is a guy that I assume was around long enough to create the society underground and then pass away. So
and also the man with the golden gun at the end, not to spoil anything, but his reaction.
Not spoil anything.
That's
You
kind
can't
of
spoil
that's
things.
kind of
Yeah,
what
spoil
it's
stuff
like.
in this
Really,
panel.
Yeah, we're
really
not
talk
bothered.
about anything, so I've seen it.
Yeah. But yeah, just at the end where the floor sort of breaks away, and then he's like, "Oh my God, it's actually the sky."
Yeah.
And he doesn't know anything about that. So
I wonder if they feel like the world is flat at this point. Like, they think the world is completely flat and they're like, oh my God, there's a sky underneath where we are. What?
Where there's another sky.
Because, I don't know, it just feels like they don't fully understand how the world is working at this point. Like,
Well, they said that like the scientists like took full responsibility for what they did, so maybe part of what they did was they were just like, oh, we're just gonna completely like cover all of this stuff up and then like just
He'll
kind
be
of,
fine, he'll be fine.
yeah, just kind of brush it away.
Doesn't matter, you don't need to brush it away. All the evidence has gone up there.
Can we just address up there? What the hell was that?
It was the moon.
I like to
no.
It was cheese.
We have a diagram somewhere.
Oh,
I think
the metal
our
sky.
understanding of it was that the stars in the sky,
Are a massive industrial complex?
yeah, sort of.
Where stuff lands?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what it was exactly and why it was there specifically. For plot, I guess. It needed to be there.
Go.
I was going to say that ceiling is like the biggest problem with the film
Yeah.
because it ruins any
biggest
sort of
question mark.
interpretation.
Well,
of it.
Maybe it was just left over from the Truman.
Well, I'm because for me, once I sort of cottoned onto the idea that okay, this has got nothing to do with our universe whatsoever. Because when you start watching this and you go, okay, how does this work? And it's like, okay, this is set in some completely other thing, so don't need to worry about sort of certain logistics. And when it comes to the fact that the city in the sky, and how that is hard to sort of cotton onto why it's a thing, how it's a thing, because you can sort of figure out exactly through when the hole in the floor, when they get through to the other side, how that's how the gravity has worked. That all kind of makes sense within the realms of the logic of the world. But with the ceiling not being sort of applied to that same logic and can't be figured out as easy. I guess it didn't bother me on the simple ground that I'm fine with there being something sort of left to be a mystery, because there's a lot to this world that we don't know about.
Sit there and try and work it out. It's like,
And it's like,
that's
I
great.
thought that's why they steered away from using any iconic buildings or anything when they like found remains of the old thing, because then it's definitely Earth.
Yeah.
Whereas this way you can sort of see
It's
it could
that
be a
bit
different
more
planet.
ambiguous, yeah.
What were you going to say, Andy? You had a point like 5 minutes ago.
I think that they built that whole ceiling to make sort of the sky and the stars and everything to pretend that they weren't in fact the actual people that were inverted.
Yeah,
and
I'm
they
under
were
the impression that they
descendants.
were the ones that were inverted. That's what I took away from the film.
'Cause
This is talking more towards the end.
When
but-
we were talking about it after, and I was like, so why would it warm up? And I thought
it was
about it, and
like
I was
being
like,
the
so
centre of the
because of
Earth?
the centre of the Earth,
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
certain
that's-
times it would pulse up, and that's why it warmed up and got
Maybe
Built
it's
it over a
because
live
maybe,
volcano.
maybe
It just
maybe
happened to
Matey
be-
Peeps with the golden gun was aware of what was up there, and that's why he didn't want anyone flying around like Age's
Connie
dad.
was so insane to give the impression that he was trying to fool himself into believing it.
It's probably one of those things where he was well aware of what was going on, but he was so engrossed in it that he'd actually managed to delude himself.
Yeah.
Did that guy ever actually get a name as well, or is he just evil bloke?
I just called him
Count
Bob.
Frollo.
I just call him Popeye because he's like.
He never blinked.
He definitely had some
did.
really interesting facial stuff going on.
Yeah, he did. It was a right giggle at times. It's
We-
like, look at that face.
The interpretation that I came up with that makes the most sense to me, but still doesn't quite make sense, is just the idea that the world itself is upside down. So the metal ceiling is the floor, and
Oh
then
my
the
God,
sky
it's like
down there is the
Australia,
actual
is she?
sky. But
I
there's
am
still
from
there's
there.
intrinsic
Speaking as a
things wrong with
visiting invert, what did you
I am very disoriented here. I don't know how I'm sitting down and why is everything that we normally treat as the floor on the ceiling.
Yeah, I think every single interpretation that you can come up with is flawed in one way or another,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is what makes it so interesting, because everything is plausible.
Yeah.
I think we're going
The-
to...
the-
We were talking about patterns and AG's meeting a second ago, weren't we?
Oh yeah, we proper like
long time
went
ago.
over there.
Can
It
we
was-
go
I think-
back to that fence? Because that fence was actually a really good tool. in it.
Best character.
Yeah, loved it. Because they do the meet, they're on different sides, but then later on when AG kicks it and gets through, it's sort of his progression into understanding patterns.
It's just amazing
And I just want to make
security
that
for a
point because it
dystopia.
sounded clever.
That's that thing of we're going to make it so scary, we're going to make them so afraid of falling down this
Yeah.
massive hole
That all
that
we
no
need
one's
to do
going to
is
go
stick
through
a
the gate
patch.
anyway, so it's
Well, it's
like
like-
protected.
Why is there
For
even a
lack of a
gate
better
there? It's like,
Just to check that the
Still a
hole's
hole.
there.
it's like that bit. It's like that bit where Porter appears and he just kind of pops his head up and goes, like, oh shit, oh shit.
Oh, Porter, what a lad.
What a legend.
What a bro.
As
Classic
soon as
third
he appeared, I
wheel.
knew, oh, you're not going to be the guardian.
It's alright, he's going to end up with that one girl from
Yeah.
the class. It's alright, it's fine. We've
Girl
come up with a
never got
we've come up with a headcanon
Oh,
already.
Who was that girl? Because she just kept being
She was
like,
just
oh,
Porter's
AG,
new
you
girlfriend.
alright?
Yeah.
That'd be it.
She was just Age's mate that was mildly concerned about him.
Yeah.
But not concerned enough.
Not concerned enough to, like, you know, she
To
didn't
get
want
involved in the
she didn't want to
story.
lose her points, yeah?
She probably got demerits though because she did like
She just
stop and
argue
talk
against
to him and
Yeah.
arguing and.
And she was the first to look up as well, which is just that's
I
suicide.
can't believe we have to look at page 3 again. Look! You can't look at the sky. The scriptures say so.
Told you last week.
Look up there. Oh, shit.
I think the main reason earlier when we first brought up the meeting that I was kind of on the fence about whether or not they knew about. Yeah. I didn't actually intend that. I'm so funny. But what was I saying? It was basically when she gets to the top of the fence and he's just like, what the fuck are you doing, love? It's just like, what are you playing at? Because he thinks she's just like pretending.
Mucking about.
And it's just like, oh.
And then she actually falls up and he's
Yeah.
like, whoa! And then they have that flyy moment.
Yeah.
Oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was so
Every
Ruin
single
Lagan
one
as
of
well,
those is
though.
great.
Like we mentioned at the end of the film yesterday that it has a lot of parallels to Gurren Lagann as well,
Yeah.
and that scene particularly
Yeah.
with the up and then the down and the woo, look at that.
That's how they explain it in
Okay,
class.
Bill
Yeah,
Cosby.
exactly. Yeah.
And it's in this scene where we see the first sort of glimpses into some of the really incredible cinematography, where they are basically using the camera angles and the framing to sort of present them in their own perspectives
Yeah.
and flipping around, and it was just really interesting about
They
where your
also
FS fit into it.
Did some shaky handy cam, I noticed. sort of
I
seemed
hate
like
shaky
it was.
handy cam.
I do too, but I could see how they were trying to make it feel like a bit more like a
Like, what?
live action sort of thing, where the way they were filming some screens. So they would have had maybe those backgrounds huge.
Yeah, the background's pretty good.
They were
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh.
I'm just glad they never changed the perspective too quickly.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm glad that they never just went jump cut. Now we're following Patama's
They made it
Oh.
very clear when they were
Yeah.
changing perspective,
Yeah.
which was very useful.
A lot of good transitions.
Yeah, like that one
Are you
bit
gonna
with
make
the
a review on
flashback.
it?
No, everyone's reviewed Patama at this point. Doesn't
Have
at
they?
this point.
Have
Yeah.
they really?
Everyone- even I have.
Loads of people.
Even
reviewed
you have.
Even I
you
have,
don't
yeah.
even review anime.
Before I watched it, I just went, yeah, it's good. Flip the video upside down, upload it, jobs are good.
Yep.
Forgot what I was going to say now.
Things.
I love the pseudoscience behind the two, like the way that their weights cancel each other out and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really well done. There were a couple of bits where I was a bit like, you're pushing my suspension of disbelief a bit too far. Case in point when they fell up to the ceiling. And there was that tiny chain was the reason why they didn't become jam on the ceiling.
Yeah.
It's like, if the chain was a bit longer, then yeah, sure, I would have accepted that. But no, they would have been jam.
If they didn't say that bit about the chain, it would have been okay. It was just drawing attention to the fact.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
They explained it away with the chain, and yeah, okay, that does logically make sense, but not when it's only like that. You know, they just go.
One more loop and we would have been stuffed.
Yeah, I know.
Well, the chain, the weight is obviously light enough for Patema to still walk with it. It's not like a 10-ton weight.
They would still.
It
The
would-
fact that they were
they-
falling so far, they would have reached terminal velocity at a point because they were falling for so long. They were falling for long enough for AG to fall asleep. So, I mean,
And
yeah.
neither of them to hold on to each
For
other.
a decent length flashback. No, it was a dreamscape. Not a
Yeah.
flashback.
During that falling scene, though, I think that was harping on back to the background stuff.
Yeah.
The sort of like cloudscape
Yeah.
That was
just
very
looked
awesome.
absolutely stunning.
That was-
It was glorious.
Zoom
There's
out,
all like
just all those
squirrels and stuff in it.
twisters.
Yeah. So someone
My family up
over
there.
You said that they're falling like through the sky. I mean, they're both like upside down. You think that? I mean, one of them would be jam, but do you think the fact that the other was holding on might be like reverse gravity on them? So like they're still falling, but they're like going
What?
up fast.
I suppose Patama would have become jam.
She hits
AG
down.
would have like nutted the ceiling and then just fallen, fallen
And then
away.
we comes Jack.
Double jam. It'd be like an inverted sandwich.
Hey.
Or
Jam
jam.
and Oreo.
The one thing I didn't get though was who was the guy that was speaking to Patma when she was young?
Lagos.
Oh,
that's Lagos.
Lagos.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said in one of the flashbacks, he said, "Don't ever let go of him."
Oh,
I guess that means
I
so
think
you
that
don't
was
fly away.
Dreamscape.
I think that was. I think she was dreaming at that
Yeah.
point because it was an old
Okay.
memory. Because in the original memory, he said, "Oh, you know, I'm going to be gone for a long time," and then at this point, she was aware that Lagos was dead. So I think she goes, "Oh,
He
No,
says
I'm
he's
not
not
coming
coming
back.
I'm not coming back."
And that's when she changes to older Patama.
Yeah.
And that's when you know, oh, this is a dream. It's not just
Yeah.
a flashback.
Keep hold
I really wish
keep
I
hold
paid
that
more
boy.
attention
He's a
during
good
that
one.
bit.
Meanwhile, he's just
Don't-
dreaming
If you
about
don't,
kissing
you'll
my
die.
kid.
Don't go with
Essentially,
Porter.
no.
He's a bit stupid.
Because at that point, I was convinced that was the end of the movie. It was going to go into that scene just with a flashback, and then the credits were going to roll. So, yeah.
It's straight up just because when you see them falling
That
up
would be
after the gun scene, it just does this fat fade to black, and
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
like, okay, is that credits time?
I would have cried. I would have been like, no, I need to know.
Laters.
It's just that awkward moment where everyone's just standing there staring, going, "What the hell just happened?"
I think the only reason I was thinking it might roll the credits was just like, surely they're dead.
That's it.
That would have been a
One
wicked
bit-
Romeo and Juliet sort of way to finish
I
it.
was expecting like when they were falling up and you get the star, the view of all the stars, and as they were just falling up and everything was clearing, I was gonna be like, they're city lights, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
city lights. Oh, it's city lights.
I genuinely
Hooray!
thought that they were gonna like run into a race of people there, but never did. I was
Likewise.
really confused about that actually.
Yeah.
because it
We've
was
been
like,
trying to
what's
get down
the
there
point?
for years, but it's just not working.
I think that's the thing that makes that part of the story such a grey area. It's just that if it was just kind of an artificial ceiling to sort of be like, yeah, these are the lights that are meant to be the stars, there wouldn't need to be all of the cityscape and all the buildings
Yeah.
and all the sort of clear areas that people will be living
'Cause
in.
it
Unless
also-
at one point some people were there to maintain it, and for whatever reason
I
they're
guess.
not there.
So why
Yeah.
would you also why would
They
you
like
label
melt.
it? It's called Area 45 or something. 5D.
Area E5
Yeah.
something.
Area
like
51, like
I
you
wish
said
it was.
yesterday.
I guess that makes sense if it was some sort of if it was built as some sort of power generator using the heat. I'm assuming this area is closest to the core of the Earth, so perhaps it was
If you
using-
go with the inverted Earth theory, then the inverted Earth theory. Give all of the names.
I'm Cameron Rose. This is my university thesis on the inverted Earth theory.
Sources, Cameron Rose.
so they
And
use
science.
so they're using the heat generated from the core to basically just keep these lights on.
That sounds like such like a Superman villain
Yeah.
evil
Yeah.
plot.
Yeah.
I'm going to replace the core of the Earth with an engine and drive it into the sun.
Yep.
Unless that's the generator they were using to draw power from gravity.
Gravity, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many ways you could interpret it.
It could have been a power generator.
I mean, that
Big
could have
one.
been the actual machine because
Yeah.
they're all
The
down
machine.
a hole.
Yeah.
Does explain why it would get super hot as well.
And it's right above where the big hole was anyway.
Or maybe the heat was just a metaphor for their passionate love.
Oh,
And the kiss that we weren't allowed to see.
because
they're kids.
They're children.
Stop imagining kids doing it.
The thing is though, it couldn't have been that hot because like her bag, when they found that was still intact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could've
Otherwise
been
it would have
That,
been
that
like
light though,
melted.
that light had seen better days.
It was pretty scuffed up. The bag.
It was,
I
but
don't-
it was
but
still.
it
Because
like
the
if it
air
is
like
that
flew
hot.
like a million miles up, like up to the sky. So of course it
Well,
would.
I did find it
but
funny how
that did
the
the bottle
torch
top.
conveniently died as they arrived. Just like,
Yeah.
oh no, you finally made it. Oh.
There's a good lead up to that big reveal of finding
The ship.
AG's
Oh, before
dead.
before we
Yeah.
go there, can I just say my favourite bit in this entire like sequence of events was where they were about to shoot AG and then Patema died for him and it was in slow motion and then it stopped being in slow motion and they were just like
Oh, that bit was so funny because
I was like, what
they were
happened? Why?
I just think how they animated it because there was basically like blurring keyframes and you just saw like the after images and it just looked a bit janky.
I love that bit when they go to the villain and they're just like,
How did the head of the security police get that far without shooting anybody? Clearly had major issues with
Because
accidents.
accidents don't happen very often.
Accidents
There's
don't
only
happen.
been one accident.
Yeah.
Oh, we can talk about
And
that
he's-
after we
and
talked
it
about the
that
whole
was,
notebook thing as well.
He
Sorry, I was
obviously,
trying-
he obviously didn't want to lose any points.
Can't shoot people. God.
So the notebook that revealed
Yeah,
that
do you want it?
Lagos and Age's
That-
dad.
That was
were-
my favourite bit.
Yeah.
Like the reveal that Lagos and Age's dad were mates was awesome.
That whole
Like,
sequence that
I
after it
loved
though was rubbish
Because
because
that
it was
was
just like still frames that was just like
Yeah,
oh it's a
I know.
5 minute
But
montage
that-
of still frames.
But that was the
That's
bit.
stuff
I felt like
that
that was the
figured out
moment
already.
that kind of both of the storylines kind of truly married together.
Yeah.
And that was when everything became cohesive. That was like the joining point.
Yeah.
And it was just like I know they were all still images and it was a bit rubbish, but it was just kind of nice seeing these two blokes being
Yeah.
mates. I was like that one image where
With the
they-
table.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
they're sitting under
Yeah.
the table. I was like, oh,
That was so
that's it.
He's got the table bolted to the floor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was like, they're just having a chin wag. It's brilliant.
But I really want to know why they had such intricately detailed blueprints for the flying machine. It's just like, the top bit's not unheavy enough yet. We need to make it unheavier.
I think it's just a case of balancing parts made from the different things that have the different properties of gravity, making it actually like work properly.
Lagos is clearly insane though because he was sat on the windowsill. So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
Mr. AG was to have just patted him on the back and said, well done, it's like, oh crap.
Bye.
I think he knows not to do that.
Don't need the flying machine now.
I think there was an incident where he was sat on the underside of the roof with his legs just dangling into the sky as well.
It did it like from like the small amount of Lagos that we saw. He did kind of give the impression of someone who was a little bit eccentric and probably didn't
Yeah.
give a crap.
Well, there's the
Yeah.
thing when they're freaking on the little car and
Yeah.
he's just hanging
He's
onto
hanging-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
he's
like,
like, "Hey!"
dude, like,
How did the police not
Notice
crack
that.
onto that? I mean, I know they're
There's a
great.
guy there, he's
I was gonna say,
on a car.
it's like
we're
that-
off to the circus. He's practicing his handstands.
No, he's just paragliding really well.
I've gotten into very elaborate balloon animal making.
This is my best one yet.
I
I
did
feel-
like that with the journal. I did do one of those things they do a lot where there's a big reveal. But they didn't have like a letter to AG
Yeah.
or something, just
Yeah.
like, dear AG, I know I'm going to die. I hope you find this someday.
Yeah, and then there'd
Here's
be a letter
every bit of
from
closure.
there'd be a letter from Lagos and back to Patema as well.
Yeah.
There was a letter.
I did think, because when you see the screenshot of
It
the
was
journal,
like an email
there's
that I
some-
don't understand what
Yeah.
was in
It
the
was,
email.
Yeah.
they like revealed this piece of
This
paper at the
makes
end,
you
and
understand
was just
everything.
Like, oh, and then they panned away from it. It's like, well, no,
Well,
wait,
they
don't know what that
Yeah,
meant.
there was
What-
one bit
what
what's
is it
on
saying?
that. It's all like
Here's what happened.
it's all jumbled letters and numbers, but there's one tiny bit of English at the end that just says email is powerful. It's like, or at least that's what it looked like.
I like to think that the elder just didn't know how to read.
Yeah, that's why he saw it. He was just like,
Yes.
yes.
Explains everything.
Order confirmation, 700 blow-up dolls.
That's
I
like
wondered where they came from. Oh.
That's what they made the flying machine out of.
Reversed gravity blow-up dolls.
A bit kinky, I think. What was I going to say? Oh, I've lost it now. Hey Tom.
Hey Tom. One thing that I was going to bring up about the notebook is that I appreciated that it was a very important plot point, but it wasn't too overpowering to the point where the entire film just felt like they were chasing after the MacGuffin. Because it's something a lot of films with a key sort of plot device like that fall into.
And at least it actually made sense for the bag to be in the cabin, because his dad didn't expect to die.
Yeah.
I wonder where his dad went though. Like
He
that's...
didn't die, he had an accident.
He didn't have an accident.
Did he
God,
fall
God.
out?
He was sniped.
Well, I know he was sniped, but it didn't
And then
show
he
him
fell
like
out.
actively falling
Yes,
out, did it?
it did.
Did
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Where was I?
Did you not see AG have that like
It's
flashback
AG.
memory of his dad falling out of the
He was
balloon?
waving
Because
and
he
he
left
literally
school
just
to
went.
go watch it.
It's
He's-
like, I
he might-
remember him waving. I don't remember him
Yeah, there was
falling
a
out.
two. You might have got it
But
after.
what he didn't do
Right.
is he didn't
That
look
he
at his
was
dad, he just continued to look at
Yeah.
the machine.
It's when he was
flying out.
talking to Fatima and he was like, oh, I left school, I snuck out of school so I could go see my dad start his flying machine, and then there's like a little flashback
It
of
was
his dad plummeting.
terrifying.
I think it's the accident where I have the most questions. Like, did nobody notice the bullet wound when he hit the floor? And when he got shot by a high caliber bullet, why did he then fall forwards?
Yeah.
Maybe it was a trank dart type thing.
It had 90-degree backwards gravity on the bullet.
I see. No,
So-
that,
so-
yeah, that does make sense. It does make
That's the
sense.
premise from September
It's
Inverted.
It's made of half and
Yeah.
half.
Maybe you lost points for looking at the body.
AG,
And it would've
sideways.
September cycle.
So never mind that point. I obviously blinked, but those whole like flashback sequences that we see of that moment just seemed really like janky and.
I find
I think it's on purpose, but it just
Yeah.
seemed
yeah,
like
'cause
janky
the
and like
first time,
I
the
couldn't
first
really
time you
understand
see it,
what's
it's
happening.
got no context. Because you see it immediately after AG and Fatima first meet, because it's just AG remembering the memory.
It's just
When
subtle
he's just sitting on his
foreshadowing,
own. Yeah, but because you don't have any context to it, I found it quite chilling.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is something like that guy's literally, because obviously from that point of view, it looks like he's gone up in a hot air balloon and then just committed suicide in front of loads of
Yeah.
people, and that was really quite dark, which is something that obviously without the context you think that's a bit. Really? You're going to go there?
It had a great subplot from then on, because you're wondering what the hell happened there.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, excellent.
Yeah. Had a trip.
There's actually a fair amount running through that felt quite dark, because just inherently, the scenes in which they're grabbing onto each other and just moving along,
Yeah.
with how they use the music and everything, it's very kind of like powerful and moving and energetic or whatever. But when you actually kind of think about that and how terrifying that is, she's just
Someone
being
you just
suspended
met.
over an imminent death. But the way that they sort of you use the audio and everything makes it so it doesn't feel like that. When in actuality, that's horrendously bad.
Well, when
What's
you
happening?
when you're at Padma's point of view, like if you go from AG to Padma, suddenly the wind sounds pick up and it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
overpowering.
Yeah, the sound design in that regard was incredible with how they whenever they flip
I
perspectives.
just find it quite funny in that one scene where they first decide to kind of use each other to fly as it'll like glide along. And you had that one piece of music that was like a slow build up to "Do-do, you're flying," and then they stop, and then it stops, and then they go and do it again, and the build up just starts again from number one. It's like, way.
What I really loved is how much in awe Fatima was, even though she was like scared when she like sort of was in the cage, and she sort of looked down. She's like, "Oh, it's beautiful," and I was like, "Oh God, I'm gonna fall off."
Yeah,
I'm
to
gonna
give off
die,
that
but it's so good.
Nothing to lose sort of vibe at some point.
Yeah.
Can you,
I mean,
can
at
you
that
imagine
point-
sleeping in that bed at the top of that building?
Oh my god,
With
when
just
oh
the abyss underneath you or over you? Or
Yeah.
I think I just literally exploded
She wasn't
inside when
sleeping.
AG like ran up to her and gave her a hug. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this is too good.
When you hear all the noises and then like she just like sits up and she's like, what is that? And then
And then
suddenly you just hugs her.
I genuinely thought Creepy Eye Guy was just going to come out of somewhere and then AG was going to punch him.
Yeah, then he's gonna sing Hellfire from the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
That's what he was doing. That's why it took him ages to turn up. He was like,
Hellfire!
singing.
He was singing into a fireplace.
Whilst at the same time terrified of it.
Yeah, I liked that scene, and then it all went bad real quick.
Yeah.
It did go horribly, horribly wrong,
Yeah.
didn't it?
How did Porter get off the ceiling where all of the security police were back to?
I think it's just a case of we didn't care about him that much, so they didn't need to show it.
They didn't,
I cared
I
about
think
Porter.
my explanation for it was just they weren't aware that he was there,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
because they were too busy focusing on
Because
camera and
he
AG.
was right underneath them, and
Yeah.
they were just like, "Oh my God, look up at the sky!" Or maybe don't, because you know,
He had
points.
rope as well. So he
Yeah.
managed to climb
Yeah.
that down on the rope.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had that extra tunnel.
Oh
That's
my
how they
god.
got in there.
That was my favourite bit, was when they were having the funeral for Patella.
Yo!
That was my favourite bit, I thought that was hilarious.
That is any movie's great.
That was good.
That was genius timing right there.
I knew it was going to happen, I saw it coming, but I still thought it was brilliant when it
Yeah.
happened.
It's kind of a bit on the nose when she's just like, "Quick, grab me and my new boyfriend."
Speaking of that tunnel, there's one thing I didn't understand about the movie, is like clearly both sides had a map of like the city and like the underground,
Yeah.
and it was like, I'm going to find those inverts, and it's like, well, why
On a
haven't you
map.
started with the map?
Why don't you start with the giant hole?
Yeah, start with a giant hole, go down there, and you might
I
find
mean, just
something.
looking up in trees.
Your nice
The whole
shiny
is scary.
building
Yeah.
goes
I
all
think,
the
I think
way
it's the
through.
idea. It's a very similar idea to why Patoma and then like Lagos and stuff weren't supposed to venture into the hole, because it was a danger zone for them, but it was also a danger zone for, is it Eiger? Is that what it was called? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they weren't supposed. That's why it was all like fenced off and stuff. So that's a restricted area anyway, and it just so happened to be that the big building went straight down into it, and no one seemed to notice. But
Yeah.
Well, both civilizations helped each other build.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
at some point.
And then just went a bit.
Because they said at some point they had to halt production or something, or they said
Yeah.
it wasn't worth trying. They wanted wanted to go in a different direction, ironically upwards.
Or downward.
Didn't they say that it was initially made so that the two
they could
started to
communicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it just all broke down. And I go like, yeah, we're going to introduce a point system, and if you look up at the sky, then you can't have any breakfast. And then the inverts were like, well, that's looking down for us. You want us to do this our whole lives? No breakfast for you. And it's like, Sergeant, I'm going to have my breakfast. Well, no,
We're gonna
no,
take all
no,
your seeds.
No giant pipe talk for you, mister.
I do like the fact that we didn't really get to know Lagos and Age's dad that much, but through the film, you saw that Age's dad sort of lived his dream of wanting to fly, even though it got him killed.
Yep.
And we had this other thing that Lagos just wanted people to communicate again. He wanted to bring,
Yeah.
And he
like, unite
definitely-
both the sides, and I
Oh.
feel like that happened
Well,
at the end of
through
the
him
film in a
inspiring
small
Was
scale.
I the only one who thought when Lagos went missing, why did Age's dad just not do anything?
He was-
went
I assume
missing.
it
He was
after
already
he
dead. He was already
died.
dead by that
He's
point.
already dead.
Because they found
he was
Lagos
watching.
immediately after killing him.
Yeah.
Because he was
It was literally-
he was,
Oh, of course,
he was
yeah.
watching from the
Two
shed.
seconds.
Yeah, that
No,
was
they-
really
Age's dad
odd
gets
that
shot.
they caught
It
him
was-
as Age's dad.
They caught
Yeah.
Lagos and then they shot the dad. Because
Because
they shot him from the place
From the
where they
place where
caught
they
Yeah,
caught
Lagos.
because during the
Uh,
montage, you
Yeah,
actually see
ultimately,
Lagos just going,
He was
"Oh
just sort of
shit,
sitting.
dead."
He was sitting in the shed, just sort of watching. And he turns around. There's just 5 Batmen. Just
Yeah.
there. It's like,
Unleash the
Really?
Batman!
Lagos not go with
And
him.
reveal himself by going, no, no, no,
Could
no,
have
no.
hit in the balloon.
Because the
Could've
people aren't
made
supposed to
him
know that inverts actually are around. They're
Yeah,
supposed
but
to
they
think
had
that
that like
everyone
top
is.
section. You could easily have
You
just sat
imagine-
inside that top section where no one would have seen
Because
you.
he was just
Until
watching
it's too
from the
late.
car at the time, wasn't he? So
Yeah.
can you just imagine all that's kicking off? Like, Age's dad is dead, Lagos has been captured, and I can just imagine the guy just sitting there in the car just going, yeah, I'm an evil bastard. bastard.
In regards to Lagos, though, one thing that really did kind of freak me out a little bit was when you saw him in the tank.
Oh,
That was horrible.
That was
because
messed up.
you know from like when they start kind of building up to it, and then the guy's like, I've caught an invert before, and it's like, oh
why
no.
don't you trust me?
Oh no.
I suspended your friend in a tank so you could see him again.
Yeah,
Everything I
thanks.
do is nice.
Yeah, why
Honest.
did you do
This can't be
Sorry?
interpreted.
that? What was, like, Lagos is dead, why is he in a tank?
I think it's just because the guy's nuts.
It's like a
But,
Zodiac
like,
type
you know
thing.
how...
Well, how are you going to bury
I
him?
think he's
I
quite
interpret it-
fascinated by them as well.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by
inverts, but he's not
You
meant
can't,
to.
he
said
But he
with a
wants
spade
to know
scarf.
everything about them, but they're evil, so he shouldn't.
You
Yeah,
can't
I sort
mate
of-
him on a plaque, because if he tries to, he'll just float off the wall.
I sort of interpreted it as some sort of trophy. Personally,
Yeah.
like, I've done this to an invert, I've captured an invert, look what I've done.
Mine is an
Just
evil
more,
laugh.
more effed up, if
Wear
you
it as a
will.
medal.
I think it's like he was in this like glass upwards tank, so maybe he was just trying to make Zordon.
YouTube from the first movie.
Yep.
I like that one. I understand that one.
Oh dear.
So what else?
We could talk about like the sort of penultimate scenes where everything's going nuts. In
Everything
the
really
underground
did
area.
just go nuts.
It went ballistic
Like the
last
progression, there were like
10,
moments
20
of action where it was quite like tense and everything, but it really did just kind of go. The plot moved fairly slowly,
Yeah.
and then the last 15 minutes were just wacky. It was just
Yeah,
like,
they were.
whoa! Everything kicks off, and then it just sort of ended.
I got to the point where I was like, okay, I know that this showing of it ends in like 10 minutes, and I have no idea where it's going.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
It went
Oh, buildings! Yeah.
Buildings!
It ended.
I did like that last little bit where they were all at the bottom of the thing, it cracked open,
Yeah.
Frollo was gone, Porter was like,
Caught in a
we
net.
thought he was
proper-
dead for a bit, you know.
Yes.
Oh man, just massive props to Porter at the end.
Oh yeah.
When
yeah.
he nutted him.
And that
Flying
fucking
headbutt.
one with the villain's freaking matey who just like saves the day with
I know,
his
yeah.
gun.
It's like he looks like an SS officer. And he just
Yeah.
saved the world.
It's like, you the man.
Can you save me in a more dignified way next time? You're welcome.
That guy was funny
It
as
was
well.
great
brilliant.
because it was
It was
like
awesome.
because he was always disobedient throughout, and then at the end it's like, oh, good job, good job,
It
guys.
almost seemed like at that point that Frollo had just like was just
Is that his
maintaining.
name?
He's now Frollo.
He was just maintaining this order, and nobody else cared for it. Everyone absolutely hated the status quo, and he was like the only guy to be like, "Yes, everyone gets to have points. No breakfast. You can just look at the sky. Oh yes, I've got a big gun. Everyone's scared of me." And everyone's just like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
I love that bit when they first punish AG and he just takes his chair. Mine now.
It just sits there. I mean, he was quite like at that point he was quite sinister.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think towards the end he did kind of become a bit of a joke.
Yeah, but
Because
this,
nobody gave a shit about him by
I
the
think
end
it
of it.
was kind of intended for him to become quite kind of a joke because they did put some of his scenes in very sort of comedic ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the way that they sort of did his face, it's just like there's not many
always
ways to
doing
make
this.
those
Yeah.
eyeballs and the
In the
expressions.
showing
he was
yesterday,
pulling.
we always laughed at his facial expressions. Like, everyone was like
Every single
laughing
time.
at it.
Come on, like you know the bit after he's shot the net at them to try and catch them, sends them and helps them, and they go back to the underground, and then you see his face, and he's just like. For like no changes in animation, just solid for like 5 seconds, and he's like,
He literally did just turn into a pantomime.
Yeah.
Didn't he? And then at the end, like when he falls up into the sky at the end, that's like a horrible thing to happen. But it was
Yeah.
hilarious.
"Bye."
And he got hit
Sucks for
by
you.
the yellow submarine thing.
Hmm?
Like the yellow thing just fell on him.
Yes!
As well.
Oh, yes! Cracked on him.
That was,
That
like,
was so cool though
He's
because
actually
he was holding Patema, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
the yellow thing just like she slips through and just freaking hits him and sends
Yeah.
him going up. It was badass.
I thought that was
God's
cool that it was H's dad's
Yeah.
thing that killed him.
Yeah, man.
That was cool.
Sweet justice.
And what was everyone's immediate reaction when the floor fell through and they go through? It's like, okay, there's the buildings from the
That was
flashback.
it. Here we go again.
I was
The
like,
moment they all reached that point and there was like a crack in the floor, I was like, it's gonna collapse,
Yeah.
isn't it? And
Yeah.
it just did. But I didn't really expect to see the stars.
Yeah, I didn't know
I
what
was
was
just
gonna
like,
happen.
I just
don't
thought
know.
it was gonna be some
I,
kind of thing.
Halfway through, I was saying that the lights and everything, that was
Yeah.
the inside, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be the sky. It's gonna be the
Yeah.
sky,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, you
I think
leaned over
we were all like going, it's going to be the sky.
You leaned
Yes!
over
Yeah.
to
That's
me.
why you stood up and went, called it.
Yeah, you leaned over to me in the middle of the room and you went, what if they're the inverts?
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Sure.
It says that on the box. Like if you look at the back of the box, the the last line is something basically on the lines of, "What if they're the inverts?"
I think pretty much, like, as soon as you see the metal sky, you start thinking, well, maybe things
Yeah.
aren't quite what you think they are. But
And then that's when
and then you
everything
forget,
goes out
and
the
then
window.
suddenly
Yeah.
there's the moon.
If that's the sky, then
The big
brain.
Well, that means that they should get all their points back, really. 'cause
Breakfast!
Breakfast is reinstated!
You all get Krispies.
Imagine that was the last line. The henchman guy goes, "Breakfast is back on."
I haven't had breakfast in 6 weeks.
I like how we made our own
No, in fact, the last line should have been Powers going, "I never did have that sandwich."
No, she did.
And then
She
they
said
just
that
jump
she-
up and it freeze
Yeah.
frames.
80s music cuts in. Yeah.
When Age and Pantomime were sort of on the other way round, so Age was like in trouble falling up through the sky,
Yeah.
and I just loved how Pantomime sort of started running through the fields and everything on the world, and then he just didn't have any fear because he trusted her. And was just
Yeah.
like, hold me, I wanna feel like.
Yeah.
And they were actually holding each other properly rather than just by the hand. It was like a hug.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think part of the reason that scene became really strong too is because they had that moment where suddenly Eiji was the invert,
Yeah.
and then he was like, now I know exactly how he feels because the elder
Well,
was
they
like,
swapped
you don't know what
everything.
she's going
You don't know
through.
what it's like.
Yeah, and then suddenly he's like knows
No,
exactly how
okay,
he
yeah,
feels.
no,
It's
I
like-
get it.
I love that bit where he's trying to tell them, and then try and see the world from her perspective. It's like, I don't care, I'm evil.
And then someone goes, you will see the world from her perspective or whatever. And then the world cracks open and then
No, man,
You see
no,
that?
it was Age doing this Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
Ah! And then this floor just like cracks open. It's like just Goku.
That was so
There is that moment when like the floor breaks and they're like suspended momentarily, and like Frollo's face, like he has that realization, like, oh my god, now I know
I don't know
exactly
what's
how
under
it
here.
feels.
What I say is that the bit where Frollo, this is the thing, mate. When he shot Eiji, I thought he just genuinely shot him. I thought that was game over
Yeah.
right there.
I thought
Yeah.
Batman had been shot.
I thought that he'd sort of given up, but still wanted to shoot the gun, so shot the floor again.
I thought
Right.
he shot through both of them.
Yeah, that's game over for someone. But no, he just shot him in the leg.
There were a
And then they
few
got rid of the gun and I was
Yeah,
like, what are you gonna do now? You've
Like,
got a knife now.
that knife was
Pretty nice. Matching gold one, he got it at the same time as he got the gun.
But I really
Cash
liked
his
it
points
here
for that,
because
yeah.
that shows his character, because he obviously revelled in torturing people.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like holding her up and just being like, I could let you go now.
Yeah,
Anytime I want.
She will tell us where the other inverts are. Why haven't you just asked her? What? No, I've got fun.
No, I can- yeah.
She's got to trust me.
There was a moment when we were watching yesterday, I can't remember who said it, but somebody was like, is it basically like Gilgamesh is like a gate of Babylon where he's just like got all of these weapons just like waiting to come out.
What would he have pulled out next?
Just like
if
a
he lost
golden
this, if he had a chance, what weapon do you think he would have pulled out next? Like a taser.
Beat him to death for years.
They did have tasers.
They did have
Yes.
tasers.
Yeah, they did. They did because the Batman the First had a taser.
Michael Keaton.
Bruce
I think we
Wayne.
just retconned all the names.
Batman the
We
First.
got Bruce
Punishment
Wayne.
is no breakfast. There you go.
Let's check my anime list and change it to Frollo.
We haven't touched upon it in all this time, and we all know we wanted to talk about it.
Bye.
What happens when they shag?
Yeah.
What's the
All I'm gonna say is when
I reckon there's
Fatima has a baby, inevitably, it's just gonna float
Yeah.
and like spin around in the air.
I mean,
this,
they're
this is
fly.
easily like the origin story to some superhero.
Yeah.
Some guy that
Hey,
Floating man.
at least 69ing for them was really easy because
Yeah.
all they had to do was stand there.
No, because you've got to hold her down.
I mean,
Or him.
it's crazy.
Clearly
Very
stand in a
very
low-ceilinged room.
And of course, neither of them can gain any more weight.
Wait,
Or else, they're having breakfast now, so they're gonna get there really quickly.
If Panama got pregnant, Eiji couldn't hold her down anymore.
Well,
No,
when,
like,
Well,
when,
because the baby would be like half weightless.
when
Yeah.
Eiji became inverted,
Yeah.
Padma just put a backpack on and she was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's enough weight to hold you down.
Yeah,
I like how everyone's come up with this idea that the baby would literally just do this.
Yeah, man,
But
that's the
what-
coolest baby ever.
But what if it came out and it was just like a normal person?
It's so
it didn't.
boring.
Yeah, well, then
What's gravity? What gravity?
Maybe that's how we find out.
Yeah,
Maybe they have to
gravity
have
does.
a baby and then we figure it
Or
out.
maybe the baby's just kind of like that, where it's got like half a head and
What
a
if
leg.
one starts floating and one
What the
starts
hell
sinking?
would happen? I'm not going to make that.
Yeah,
That's
he-
ridiculous.
yeah, that was the-
Going on your twins idea, if you had like
Yeah.
Siamese
Okay.
twins,
So-
one floats up, one floats up.
Right, so Frollo's real name
Oh, don't
is
tell me.
Izamura.
Nah,
I'm just calling Frollo.
No,
Can I just point out that like they've all got quite interesting names. So you've got Patama, Age, Porter, Lagos, Izamura. The girl, Age's friend, is called Kaho, and then the henchman guy in like the black jacket and stuff is just called Jack.
God damn it, Jack.
He's fucking Jack from Tekken.
See, no, Age should have been called Jack, because then you could have a Titanic joke.
What time is it?
It's like
11
o'clock.
Okay.
So we've got about half an hour.
Ish, yeah.
It's like 5 past. So.
Okay. We haven't talked about.
Characters specifically.
Characters.
We kind of have though, haven't we? We've just sort
So,
of
we haven't
intimated
like
the-
actually properly focused on Patema and AG.
Well, we can just say Patema's the
But
best.
Patema is so
It's
cute.
so cool.
Oh my god.
One thing I did quite like about their interaction was when AG turned around and went, "Oh, you're such a princess." She actually was. She was a king's daughter.
No, she just says it straight away. She's like, yes, I
Don't
am.
you forget.
Don't you forget.
No, don't get me
the
that
story
stuff.
itself at a point does divulge to a classic like saving the princess story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She
She's
did.
at the top of a castle.
Yeah.
The fact that she was the princess and still did all this stuff really reminded me of Nausicaa, which is good because
Yes.
that's my favourite film. But the fact that Nausicaa was this princess who just went out on her own to do stuff,
Yeah.
that's what Patema did. And I liked her because she was like Nausicaa.
She did a thing. She was just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, her
And she was
release
upside
a
down,
figure.
so.
You have to stick it upside down.
Oh, that'd be wicked if you could like
Blue
stick it
tack
to
it
the
to the
ceiling.
Oh, they could make like a scale figure, a pair of them hugging, and you
Oh,
could
that would be
change
brilliant.
which side they
Oh,
go
that's
on.
brilliant.
I want to
That'd be really cool.
Stick it on the
At the moment,
That'd be expensive.
I just want Frollo.
I don't care.
I just want to figure
It's
it out.
expensive, but
Frollo,
really
Frollo,
good.
then
You,
just sort
you
of goes.
realise that for Christmas I'm going to
Your
buy you a figure of
faces.
Frollo from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is what you wanted.
With just like proper mad face on. Oh. Oh god, what was it? Terrible with names.
Jack.
No, a figure of the canister with what's his face in it upside down.
Oh,
Oh, Lagos, thank you. Terrible with names.
Do you think you'd have to add your own water?
It could be like a snow globe. You can shake it and pretend you're Frollo. Give me the answers. Where are they? Where are the ingredients? Where are the other ones?
Liam Neeson.
The sort of gravity cartridge metal things that they were putting inside
Yeah.
the machine and that they tied to the leg or whatever, they just look like the laughing canisters from Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
What were they? What was like? Wait,
Did
did
you
you
wait?
name them?
It was just a case of they were literally just like cross weights or whatever that were assigned to a different gravity. So if
But
each one
it
is
seemed like Lagos was taking them with him. Unless it was just
Yeah.
a case of they were weights to make exploration
exactly,
easier.
they were there in order for the machine to work because the machine works on a basis of utilising gravity.
Yeah, yeah.
And
He had
so
them
with,
in
and
his
you have
backpack,
weights
so.
that are assigned to each opposite gravity, and so removing one will have it go one way,
Yeah, yeah.
removing another will have it go the other way.
So it affects the speed as well. Actually, that makes sense because I assumed that when Lagos came back that final time, that's what he went to get because his backpack was full of them.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go take these. I've got a mate who's just like really into lifting at the moment.
Yep.
See what you did there.
Pretty amazing. That,
I didn't even see what I did there.
pretty amazing how they managed to calculate it though, so that like, regardless of what direction the thing was going, it was going the exact same speed. Because they like really saw the weights.
Yeah.
And, like you expected to just kind of go, "Whoa," but it was just like.
Graceful flower.
That machine was badass.
That was
That's
awesome.
what it was on its side, and then it
Yep.
just
Yeah.
falls.
Right. So AG.
We still haven't talked about AG.
Yeah.
I liked him.
He was normal. I wrote down on my notes Joe Tagonist. Because he just seemed like a normal dude.
I just
I
like.
think that's what was needed for the story
Yeah,
though.
definitely. That's not a complaint.
You've
It's
got to
just
give
that's
him
what he
props
felt
as well for being shot in the leg and still hanging on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also just general sort of mental strength and fortitude
Yeah.
for being able to be himself and be this character in a world where everyone else has just given in to the man.
And
Considering as well what he witnessed when his father
Yeah.
tried to fly. I think
love his
anyone
angry
else,
face.
especially in that society, you'd think, okay, he really has been punished for trying to fly. maybe I should conform.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He was like, well, no, something's not right here.
Yeah.
You know, my dad wouldn't just off himself.
Well, there's
He
that
was
part
too
where it's scanning all the desks and they're all really neat, and then you get to his and he's got pictures of his dad and it's all really
It's
ugly.
all messy.
He
and stuff,
keeps his
yeah.
tie tucked in his pocket, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
really
It's
awesome.
really long time.
Yeah.
That tie would have been like down here.
Yeah.
He's not tucked it into his
He's
pocket.
probably just really short and it's a normal time.
At first, I thought that he was wearing like an inverted tie, and it was just like Lagos gave him a tie as a present. He's like,
It's like, yeah, this is awesome. Thwack.
I did like when I did like how AG was wearing like the little bangle
Right.
thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kept floating up in the air.
It kept your perspective as well. It kept
Yeah.
you reminding you, oh, so he's actually that way now. You know, oh, he's that way.
I was
Um,
really
I
getting
really-
confused
yeah, I
as to which
didn't
way
do
the
that.
sand should have been falling.
Yeah, what
though.
was the
Yeah.
was the sand of a different gravity?
Yeah,
to
I think
Yeah.
the sand was
Yeah.
inverted
Yeah.
to what was the actual
That's
container.
why he gave it to.
Mm.
Because that gives the impression that that thing is really damn old as well.
Yeah.
Because Lagos just found it while he was exploring once, didn't he? That's probably a relic from the time when everyone was friends.
Or AG's dad made it.
Yeah, or yeah, they could have made it. Yeah, that's very possible
Yeah.
as well. Except I suppose he did try to give it to it before he left.
Yeah.
So
It sounded like AG's dad was like very well known in that country for
Yeah.
making lots of things. So.
Yeah, he was Inspector Gadget.
I get the feeling they only kept him around because he was very good at making things.
Yeah.
And they kind of tolerated his weirdness of wanting to fly into the sky,
to a
which was
point.
crazy.
Yep.
Up to certain points.
Just
imagine,
make a
like,
couple
trying to
more
get a
Batman.
replica of that bracelet.
Yeah, just make more stuff that we want.
Easy
Yeah.
to do,
More red
just
glowy
try to
eyes,
support
please.
it there and have it like point up.
Or you put a
Do
little
it.
propeller in it.
Yeah.
For a bit of anti-gravity stuff.
Be
A
really
little
cool.
bit of anti-gravity.
Yeah.
Start doing science with gravity. That was weird. Like the whole premise of
Oh,
they
get
tried
energy
to
from
make
gravity.
gravity into an energy resource.
I
and
think
it
that they were
basically-
probably trying to do like a perpetual motion type thing of make
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
lighter at the top or at the bottom. It just keeps going.
But then the world imploded.
Well, it didn't implode, it floated to the sky.
All you need is
The
to
world
get an
floated to the sky.
all you need to get is an invert and a non-invert and get them to run at each other really fast, tackle glomp each other, and then they'll just spin forever.
And then somehow insert a dynamo into it.
Or Patima's baby. There we go.
There we go.
Right there.
Right, anything else anyone want to bring up about anything story character related before we move
How
into
good was
animation?
Porter? I love
Porter.
Yeah.
Just-
Porter was a boss.
that guy was
See, when they
absolutely-
teamed up, it was Portage.
He reminds me of, you know, I know this is a really weird comparison to make, but you know, Taro from Shirobako.
Yeah.
He reminded me
Yeah,
of him.
he was exactly that kind of character. I'm not sure how to completely nail down what that character archetype is called, but they turn up a
Best
lot. They're
friend.
kind of like feisty, annoying one.
Yeah.
It's just
Comic
kind of-
relief. That was
Yeah.
what he
Yeah.
was.
Because
Like,
that bit, like shortly after he was saved by Jack, and it was just
Yeah,
remarking,
Jack.
on she likes him.
I like the. I think Porter's character is established right from the start.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what the chief says.
A gentleman or something.
Oh, that's it. That's it. When Patima says, "Oh, gentlemen, don't burst into."
I'm a gentleman.
Yeah, it was just like, "I'm a gentleman." Shut up, Porter. Oh, yeah, he was genius. I think he was easily
Best
one of my
boy.
favourite
Best boy.
characters.
Yeah.
Best boy.
Best boy, Porter.
Was Porter like second in command to the chief? To the.
Oh, he's a guardian.
Yeah, he was,
Yeah.
he was her guardian.
Yeah.
They weren't very good at that.
Yeah, he was really bad at his job because he was like, okay, we've got to go save Patema. Oh shit. He went up
But that
to
was
the
stopping
sky.
him.
Down to the sky, sorry.
Just the bit where he met Age for the first time as well. Like that, in contrast to when Age first meets Patima, and it's all very like, ooh, what? And then you get Age and Porter's just like, ah!
Do you think that's because Porter knows, like, Padma doesn't know about the other people, but the adults do?
Yeah.
And so they know that there's an actual problem.
Maybe he was actually just scared of the fence and he's got a phobia of change.
The barbed
Doors
wire
open.
only affect Porter as well. Padma held the barbed wire for quite some time.
Yeah.
She was fine.
Well, she was wearing
And
gloves.
Porter was wearing gloves. He was like, help, this hurts.
Well, she was probably like clever enough to grab the bits between the spikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Porter was just like.
I don't think she had enough time when she was falling to go, oh, here, and here,
Yeah.
and here. Yep, that
No,
should
she
do
was just
it.
a bit busy trying to save her life.
Maybe because she was a protagonist, she fluked it.
Yeah.
Plot armor, too
Yeah.
strong.
So,
The narrative is strong.
Visuals, it looked beautiful.
Oh,
It
it's
is.
so good.
Yeah, I thought the character designs were incredible. Like the again, going back to one of my first points in terms of the contrast
The exploration.
with the everyone underground with these kind of like the exploration suits and everything that looked really kind of rural and interesting, and Patema's clothing, which was just a little bit more fancy, but still very kind of like down to earth and not particularly modern, or at least to our standards. And then you go up ground, and it's just like these posh toff suits and all of this stuff.
Ages changes throughout, like he just loses some of the
Yeah.
performing things.
Well, there was a point where AG, you just saw him sat in a chair, short sleeved white shirt, like ruffled up brown hair. He just looked like Shinji.
What I really loved is like the lack of colour in like all of their uniforms. It was very much grey and pale colours. It's like you all conform, and there's no fun here.
No fun for you.
Yep.
I liked how it just made everything in the beginning seem so small, and then as it just got bigger.
Exactly.
Bigger,
Everything's got. Every time they added a layer,
Such a
the
good-
world just kind of
just a
doubled
bit
in
of scale.
size. Exactly. Yeah. And like my favourite visual thing was when they get to the ceiling,
Yeah.
as it were. I just loved the entire look of that area,
Yeah.
and the fact that it was just because you had like
It was like an
it
empty
was
city.
it was like slight technological, because you kind of get the post-apocalyptic kind of industrial sort of look of the original area where everything all starts off, but this was just completely like this was just a metal landscape,
Yeah.
completely barren, and it was like it's quite terrifying to look at, really, just because if you were there.
Hero's journey.
Yeah, that's something I've actually I was going to bring up. I was going to write down, because that episode of Kino's Journey felt very similar to some of the early scenes of this.
Wait, which episode? The
Robot
Robot
Town.
Town.
The Robot Town,
Okay,
yeah.
Robot Town.
I actually wanted to. I'm going to look it up somewhere later on. I want to know how many people are actually working on like background design and stuff for the
Yeah,
film.
the backgrounds were my favourite thing
It's
about
just
it.
it's not just a case of because they were so bloody good. It's because there was so much variety. It didn't feel like the same sort of person's work each time, because you can't like look at a part of this film and go, yeah, that's Patema inverted, just like this film's overall design aesthetic, because everything was so different. There were so many different portions of it that if that was the work of one person, then they've got an incredible range of talents.
Varied so much, but it was still cohesive with everything else.
Yeah.
My two favourite scenes in the movie, visual-wise, were the Gurren Lagann scene, basically,
Yeah.
where they were.
Dude, I want to get that clip.
I
and
mean,
then
that's
just
my
put-
favourite.
Just put the OST over it.
Yeah, that's my favourite scene in Gurren Lagann, so I feel like that's probably why I like
they were
that
spinning.
scene so
they were
much.
spinning around as well.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect.
What was the other one?
But the other bit was where they were in the clouds, which we've already talked about.
Yeah.
Oh, what about the bit when they're hugging and it's just sunrise? Or
That was
sunset?
kind of
Hug rise.
Yeah.
Hug rise.
Sunrise.
I love when you have the first flip.
Yeah, when they
Yeah.
first meet and they're just like, ooh.
I was expecting
They're up
like
here,
I was
let's
expecting
dish
like
that
an
back
Inception style.
I love when they took Age underground to the invert city. It's like we've already had all of these establishing shots, but now they're completely reversed, and
Yeah.
we've got all of these people
Yeah.
that we've already come to recognise as the good guys or the people
Yeah.
about civic freedom, and they're all upside down now.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but I really, really can't say enough good things about how like the camera angles and stuff are organised. Just in like the scenes where it's just a case of it's very much like really playing on people with a fear of heights, but in a really weird way, because I can't imagine just like lying down on the grass looking up at the sky and being scared, but having like going, oh god, that's so
Having to
far
hang
down.
onto the grass.
Yeah, but when they basically show the scenes of like Patema in the little hut and she looks over, and it's strange how a shot from AG's perspective looking up at the sky looks completely different somehow to Patema looking down at the sky, when it's still inherently the same thing, because they do sort of, I feel like they're using this method where it's sort of, from Patema's perspective, it was sort of curved and like tunneling downwards, so it actually sort of had the sort of feel of falling, as opposed to where Age is just like a sky that any of us would see.
Yeah.
It also plays on that morbid curiosity. Like, it looks so beautiful, but if you go into it, you're nicked.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's like Mushishi. That's Mushishi vibes
Yeah, it
all
is.
over there. Yeah, visual good.
So
Mhm.
good.
Except for flashbacks.
Yeah, overall.
Yeah, right. The one
And
thing
that
that I
first
didn't.
person bit in the.
You mean the
Cabin?
very first scene?
Well, no. There's a Padma has a first person shot, I think, where she's like stumbling towards the door.
Oh,
That
and then she
really
looks over the edge, yeah.
Mm.
The one bit that I was really unimpressed by was that montage of just still frames.
Yeah.
Because it was just so boring, and the fact that it went on for so long, it was like a good 5 minutes
to
of
go on
just
for a
still
song,
frames.
Yeah, the pictures themselves were interesting. There was a lot of like detail and stuff to pick out, but each one was up for way too long, and it was just like,
Yeah.
I
It
still
would have
feel
been
like
fine
I
if
want
it
to go
just
look
had
at
like.
those pictures individually and find more things.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
it would have been nice if there was just a
definitely-
little bit of simple animation to it, like him turning his head and like
Yeah.
smiling at each other.
I
or
think
whatever.
it's just
That
the
would have
main
done it
reason
for me.
that
I want to know who was taking the picture.
Yeah, it just stands out so much because everything else was so good that when it got to a point of like, all right, let's have a slideshow, it's just like, you can do better than this.
Yeah.
We've seen you
Yeah.
do better than this.
Maybe they were just like, oh shit, we've not got much of a budget left because we've spent it on all these amazing.
Yeah.
You spend it on the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of actual like animation quality, it was very exceptional overall. Apart from that, and also as I said earlier, I wasn't really a fan of how they animated the scene where Tatema's jumping forwards to AG when he's about to be shot, because it's just like they were fading through the keyframes and it just looked a bit odd.
Do you think that was just so that you have that contrast because it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I reckon so.
Yeah, it would definitely. They slowed it
worked-
right
it
down
worked
so they go.
No, the fact that it's not that it was slowed down, it's that they didn't have any in-betweens. Because it was just like really obvious cutting through the keyframes
Yeah.
and it just looked a bit off. I'm sure that was probably intentional, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't feel like anything visually in this film was done on accident.
oh yeah.
I feel like it was
It's
all
not
all
Studio
on
Trigger.
purpose. Oh! Oh!
You and I are gonna have words. boy.
I did actually really like that first scene because I went into it blind yesterday. I had no idea what I was about to watch. That first scene where you've got Frollo just sort of picking
Yeah.
up one of the weights and just letting it go while he's
Yeah.
delivering this really creepy montage. We're not the same, you and I. We're different people. It set the world up fairly well.
I think he was
whilst
talking to
keeping
the
a lot of
Lagos.
reveals.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
had that
Oh, yeah,
thought
yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
I actually get the feeling, knowing now that he was in the tank, that he was talking to him either as he died or possibly like a few days
So-
after.
Because
So
in
you
that
know,
film, I was
Tank
thinking that was like when
Do you
Patton
really
was
not
there, and now that I
believe
think about
that he
it,
talks to Tank Lagos?
that means Lagos just
Oh.
died shortly before the film starts.
Or does
Yeah.
it mean or he might have just been talking to dead Lagos?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
He's
what I'm
a
saying.
bit of a nutter.
All we
He's
know
easy
is
to
it's a bit
talk
of
to.
a-
Because
I think there's an
Just in that he
indication
wasn't
that
talking
he is
back, I
he's
guess.
in the tank. So I assume he's been put in that tank to
Yeah.
preserve his
So
body.
either he's being
So
tortured
he's probably-
at the time
But-
of that first scene,
or he's
or
already
it's just
dead.
because Frollo's a loony.
Well,
Yeah.
we know that it has to be at least a few years because of Passima's memory of.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
she's
obviously.
she's noticeably
And
younger.
that was the
I mean,
last time she saw
minimum
him.
a year.
But
Yeah.
she hasn't got a
I'd
script
say
ready yet.
more than
Yeah.
that. So. She
Similarly,
looks very little in that scene.
She's a kid. They grow up fast.
any other time
She ate her
we've seen
breakfast,
stuff
unlike AG.
from the perspective of an invert, people have been upside down. So, because Frollo was right way up, are we supposed to assume that somehow Lagos was also right way up and alive, and then he got killed and put in a
I
tank?
don't think it necessarily has to be from Lagos's perspective,
just-
rather than
it was
ours,
just
like
from-
it was
ours
just-
maybe.
Like when he was talking to the tank, it was basically just like we are at the tank where he's talking, and it wasn't exactly from Lagos's perspective.
I suppose
It
the-
was
the-
I
like,
do want to
thing
see
is,
that
if
that
they
bit
d-
again, so I
Yeah.
can get a better.
If
Yeah.
we
feel
if
for
we
what's
had done it
happening
from
when I've seen
Lagos's
He's got a
perspective,
fish named
showing
Lagos.
if either we saw someone upside down wearing the suit that Lagos was wearing, or we saw it from Lagos's perspective where Frollo was upside down, that would have given away the reveal that Patima was upside down.
Yeah.
Except
like
she
you
actually
can tell
wasn't.
from-
Not like
Yeah.
from the box art.
Yeah.
So it would, well, yeah. So it would have. I mean,
It would say
as far as
the
the
impacts.
yeah, exactly. It would have revealed too much right at the start. I
they
think
seemed
if
to
they'd done
really
that.
like go out of their way to make it so that when they first encountered each other, like it was a big deal that they were like going two different directions.
I don't feel like it was a big deal for me because I'd seen the box art and I knew it was about upside down people. So
I kind of wish that when everything was going to crap right at the beginning and the buildings were floating up, that was subbed as well. Like, I know that they were probably going, oh crap, stuff's flying away,
yeah.
but I kind of...
Oh, that first.
Yeah.
Yeah, was
Yeah,
that
it's
even in
just-
Japanese or was that in like a multitude of
It
different
sounded like
It
Japanese.
sounded like there was no language in there.
Because it felt like
So
it was like
I
a
heard-
mixed kind of like radio.
Felt like I heard something.
jargon.
Maybe that email was a transcript of what was being said.
Yeah. Email is power video.
Right, shall we move on to the music quickly before final thoughts because I think we're running out of time.
Can I have an OST, please?
Yeah.
Can I have an act? Buy it for me. Is it in the
Some of the
DVD?
music in the first bit sounded like
music,
Pingu
yeah.
music to me.
Yeah.
What's up?
Battery just died.
Oh no!
Yeah. There's just like change the battery pack.
Jack, oh.
Pause every thought you have right now.
Yesterday.
You need better cameras.
Oh dear.
I need spare battery.
Mine's
That's what I
liable to
need.
die as well.
Oh good.
But no, I charged.
We'll carry on anyway.
You sure?
We're running out of time.
Oh, okay. Jeez.
Now seems like
Yeah, we are. We've got like 7 minutes.
Now seems like the time to mention the fact that when we went down into the bar, they were playing not only a different point of view, but also Castles in the Sky.
It was magic.
It's like,
That was true, yeah.
yeah.
We're good? Is it on record?
Yeah.
So, one thing that I noticed is that some of the music in the beginning of the film sounded like music from Pingu. Because it sounded like it was being played on icicles. that was the only thing I picked up about the OST. I was like, that sounded like
And
Pingu.
that's why I want the OST.
That's why I want
Yeah.
the OST.
There was a lot of very, very different stuff in there. It definitely had a great variety to it, and it was used remarkably well. I mean, we already mentioned earlier, like the hilarity of the scene where it's cutting out. But I think on the sound design front, one of the most impressive scenes for me was when she first found Batman in the tunnel, and it's basically like just kind of these low sort of echoey sound effects, and then sort of the music just kind of erupts as he's there, and it just sounded so incredible, and definitely would have been awesome if I got to see it in a cinema or something.
Like he got close to the edge
Yeah.
where he would have fallen.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right, we should move on to final
Should we very
thoughts.
quickly jump into final thoughts and wrap up now?
So, where should we start?
Andy, and go this way. Let's do that.
Have you watched Anime Club before?
You start the other end.
I'd give it a score out of 10, right?
Yeah.
Alright, I thought it was excellent. I will watch it again, definitely, because it was a really quality film. I reckon people would enjoy it, regardless of their position on anime. And, yeah, best character pattern. I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
Ew.
I think you're biased towards Padma.
Yeah, Pat.
She's perfect.
I'll be really brief on this. I really, really like this film, and I don't know what I was expecting from it. I don't know whether I was expecting to love it or hate it, but I ended up really, really enjoying it and getting quite a lot out of it. Even though I thought at first it was going to be like really boring and drag a little bit, but it's great, it's fine. I definitely want to watch it again to see if there's anything else I can get out of it from a second watch, like the first scene, and see if that has any more sense with the context that I have now. But I'd give it a 9 out of 10 as well.
Boom. So as mentioned earlier, I was really, really excited to see what they did with this specific idea, because it's something that I had mulled over before and thought would be really cool. I thought they handled it exceptionally well. I mean, finding a way to justify that is tricky, and I think they pulled it off masterfully. The way the film sort of flowed and progressed was great, because it just starts off slow, introduces you to what you need to know, and then it proper like hits the fan and goes crazy towards the end, and it was just such a fun ride, really entertaining. Really strong 8 out of 10.
Nice.
Special camera rating 10 out of 10.
Yeah, Power and Voodoo is such a good film. I'll recommend it to anyone, regardless of whether they're a fan of anime or not. This is definitely going to be one of those films that I'm going to label as something to show to my dad.
Yep.
Because he's not
Special Cam's dad rating.
Special Cam's dad out of 10. But yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. The storyline is so interesting and so good, and it really kind of gets you thinking about perspective as well, and kind of how your perspective changes the world, but not in a sense of, because obviously you have a lot of films that do that. Oh, you know, good and evil is only from your perspective, but this physically does it. Like, it forces you to change your perspective based on where you are in the world and which way around you're standing. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to get hold of it as soon as I can and watch it again.
Dealer's room.
Dealer's room straight away right now. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Oh, but it's inverted, it's a 9! I'm funny.
Well, really, that's a 9 out of 1.
9 out of 1.
9 out of
900%.
Again, I really enjoyed it, like I said at the start, and I like the both aspects, of seeing both sides of it, and just again how it built up. And generally with anime films, I don't watch them again, but I really want to watch that again now, knowing how it ended. Just being able to see it through and just trying to piece it together a bit better. Just hopefully.
I will say.
Imagine if they had a first person.
I will say, watching it in a room with lots of other people was a really good experience as well.
definitely.
Just for those specific moments where we were all laughing. Yeah, and everyone was just like, just that one bit where everyone was just like, way!
And I'm gonna give it an 8.
That's a 43? 43 out of 50.
That's a
We've
maths
never-
out of
we've
50.
never-
We've never had a 50 before.
Yep.
We've
It's
never had
because
to guess.
you don't normally do
Yeah.
this on live stream, and having 5 people on the live stream
It
would
just
be
doesn't
chaos.
Bad
Did it ruin
name.
our layout?
It would,
Okay.
yeah.
So anyone in the room who is interested in seeing what we do again, we do this fortnightly on youtube.com/Okko Anime Club.
It's in your event schedule.
It's in your event
Curious.
schedule, the link to it. If you'd like to join us for our next one, it's going to be on Terra for Mars on
2 weeks.
It's
2 weeks from now. I
2
forget
weeks
the date,
to
20
yesterday,
something.
so.
If you want to watch it, it's on Crunchyroll. You can watch it for free.
We choose all our anime from the UK Crunchyroll.
Yeah,
so.
you can watch everything for free streaming sites. We use YouTube once. We use Crunchyroll. We may be moving on to use to soon.
Yeah, and then Netflix and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but yeah, we will try to use free sources as much as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you wanted to go back and check out and just listen to anything else that we're doing whilst you're at work or whatever, we've done a lot of shows in the past, good stuff.
This is
Kuroko,
episode
stuff like
25,
that.
I
Episode
believe.
25, this is, yeah. And we did our first episode a year ago today. And
Thank you all so much
Thank
for
you
coming.
for
It's been
coming.
really This has been nice.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this.
And if
Best
anyone wants
panel.
any Haribo, please take some.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yay.